I think that the most exciting products today are those that make a noise when you drop them. They aren't just pixels on a screen or companies with .com in their name. And at IDEO, we've seen a lot of our work transition to these types of products. They're not just physical, they're not just digital, they're a combination of the two. So that includes things like this activity tracker that we designed for, called Mira, that is designed to track your movement, but also fit in with your lifestyle. Or the AliveCor heart monitor, which allows for detecting more than just heartbeats, really monitoring irregularities and allowing people to manage their heart condition anywhere. We worked with Melon to bring their headband and app to market, which gives users the ability to measure their brain activity and actually track their mental focus. And we helped SwipeSense refine their connected hand sanitizer system, which makes hospitals safer by tracking where and when doctors clean their hands. We've also seen firsthand how important it is and how challenging it is to manage all of these different connected devices by designing Internet of Things platforms like Zebra Zatar. And all of these products, they bridge this gap between the physical and digital worlds. They blend the two together in ways that try to create a unified experience that really leverages both of those. And they require new technologies and a new approach to design that breaks from the historical separation we're used to into different design disciplines. It's not enough to just put a chip in something and treat it like software. Good Internet of Things experiences require a holistic approach, and designers need to understand the nuances of each of the mediums they're working with. So at IDEO, we tend to talk a lot about people having a T-shaped skill set, and that's where designers have this deep expertise in a particular area, but they can empathize and collaborate with a broad range of other disciplines. But today, I believe that designers need to go beyond this T and purposefully develop an overlap with one or more disciplines. There's still this need for deep expertise and collaboration with others, but designers need more breadth in that core of their T if they want to really design integrated experiences. So I'm writing a book for O'Reilly in collaboration with my colleague Quen Chang, who's here today as well, and it's called Understanding Industrial Design. And the goal is really to provide interaction designers and UX professionals with a better understanding of a discipline that they're increasingly needing to overlap with. So what's new and exciting about the Internet of Things is the things part, right? The way that computation and information is starting to intertwine with our everyday physical reality. And things are obviously not something new. That's the great part about understanding industrial design. There's this deep history that you can dive into with over a century's worth of exploration that makes interaction design seem really very young by comparison. And objects have been with us forever, but the emergence of industrial design is tied closely with the rise of the Industrial Revolution, where for the first time, products were starting to be mass-produced and really for a large audience. Previously, products were these bespoke creations that craftsmen created for individual people. But the introduction of new manufacturing techniques created opportunities for business to mass produce the same product for many different people. And so this is really the catalyst for design in general as we know it today. The role of a designer as bringing together the needs of people and business and technology and creating something that's desirable and viable and feasible. And in the early 20th century, we can look to people like Raymond Loewy, who is widely considered the father of industrial design. He helped establish this model of the designer as consultant, as someone who could specialize in the idea of design, not any one particular product or industry. He designed everything from Studebaker automobiles to Coca-Cola vending machines, and he forged this connection between design and business like there really hadn't been before. Today we think of design as focusing on the user, and an early pioneer for that point of view was the industrial designer Henry Dreyfuss. He has books like Designing for People and The Measure of Man that fit in with his overall notion that good design is for everyone. And that's a concept that really wouldn't have even made sense before the rise of mass production. And part of what industrial designers have always done is to push the boundaries of new technology. So one can see that in these different chair examples, where the different forms, both aesthetic and functional, were made possible through new ways of bending wood or fiberglass, or leveraging new technologies like injection molding and die casting. But it's important to remember that industrial design gives us not just the history and development of physical form, but also more conceptual design concerns that have really shaped many aspects of UX and interaction design today as well. People like Charles and Ray Eames, their work explored concepts of adaptability, and their Powers of 10 film has inspired generations of designers to consider the next higher context that a design lives within. In his work for Braun, Dieter Rams connected form and behavior. He was a pioneer in designing integrated experiences for electronic products. And although the possibilities with embedded computation today are so much greater, we can still look to these electronic products as a precursor, really the moment when you could disconnect form and function and open up flexible possibilities in how the behavior of a product could be designed. These electronic controls started to provide a choice. So should a function be labeled, should it be done with a knob or a slider or a button? These integrated electronics were a foreshadowing of the immense flexibility that software would give designers in disconnecting product behavior from what was happening behind the scenes. And because of that, in some ways, it's odd that interaction design even emerged as a different discipline instead of just being a natural evolution of industrial design. But the rise of personal computers and the graphical user interface, it attracted all these professionals from other fields. And, computer science, psychology, graphic design. This is IDEO co-founder Bill Moggridge, the late Bill Moggridge, who, along with Bill Verplank, is often credited with coining the term interaction design early on. Moggridge had an industrial design background. He was designing the first clamshell computer, the Grid Compass that you see here. And that's when it really clicked with him, the potential for integrating what was happening on the screen with the physical design that he was working on. And the Grid was made, the hardware and the software was made by this company, Grid. So why shouldn't they be designed together? People coming from other disciplines, HCI pioneer Terry Winograd also talked about how industrial design and interaction design overlapped and very early on, especially in their strong user-oriented point of view. But unfortunately, the business side of computing really kind of conspired against this early possibility for integration. Instead of becoming more connected, the Windows operating system championed this idea of separating hardware and software, a general purpose OS that could run on any computer. So we know how this worked out. Computer manufacturers jumped at the chance to leave software to someone else. Businesses were attracted to the uniformity and the lower price. And the rise of the web abstracted software even further from hardware, with this promise that anyone could write HTML and it would run on any computer regardless of the operating system. Netizens of the early web really thought of themselves as being post-physical. It was kind of a bad thing to be physical. They were unconstrained by this physical world. So virtual reality was thought of as the ultimate expression of progress. .com firms like Razorfish that champion this idea that everything that can be digital will be. And in this era of digital utopianism, industrial designers were still designing and making great products, but for the first time in the history of the discipline, they weren't driving the latest technology trends. It was really the emergence of smart devices where we see this key moment coming of reintegration, really, between industrial and interaction design, or at least the beginning of something there. The smartphone, in particular the iPhone, is this huge contributor to connecting software to the physical world again. So mobile phone operating systems followed the same approach as Windows. So Symbian and Windows CE, they largely were just available on many different devices. But iOS was tightly integrated with the iPhone. And it's still screen-based, right? It's physical gestures, but on a screen. But all of a sudden, people had to be concerned with the physical size of things, with physical gestures and fingers. It starts to bring physicality back into that dialogue that was missing. And it's this limited idea of physicality. It kind of harkens back to these detailed human measurements that Henry Dreyfuss was doing. But I think it's a stepping stone into a new era. This visual style of skeuomorphism that we're used to emphasized the connection between physical and digital. And although it was very heavy-handed, it actually played a vital role in transitioning us to this new form of computing. In her book, How We Became Posthuman, Catherine Hales describes skeuomorphs as threshold devices, smoothing the transition between one conceptual constellation and another. And the transition that we're making now is about much more than just flat visual design. The smartphone has dematerialized many products, making cameras and navigation devices and radios and calculators redundant. It's kind of mixed up expectations about what should be physical and what should be digital. The smartphone took us to this logical extreme in the idea that everything that can be digital will be. But now we've kind of broken through that threshold to see things beyond it and consider other smart things that emphasize the positive qualities of physicality as well as virtuality. And the Internet of Things isn't just about bringing computation and connectivity to the physical world. It's about reaching the point where almost anything can be done physically or digitally. It's now about choice. We're at this point where designers can stop swinging to extremes, all digital, all physical, and begin to tease out the nuances of a particular product and a particular situation. Some products that were traditionally physical are perfectly suited to being dematerialized into an app. Others should remain physical, but with a layer of computation and connectivity that gives them new capabilities. And the struggle of deciding what form a behavior should take, it's really evident in products like cars, where nearly any function could be handled digitally or physically. And car makers are clearly struggling to find the right balance. This choice is why it's so important to understand industrial design. Even if you're not designing the final physical form of a product that you're working on, today's technological capabilities require all designers to have a sense of possibility and appropriateness in deciding what should be physical and what should be digital. So to help designers build up a sensitivity to that choice, our book is structured around 7 different design principles. These aren't unique to industrial design, but they're explored through that lens in order to inspire and inform interaction designers and UX professionals as they increasingly overlap with the discipline. And we don't have time to go through all of them today, but I wanted to highlight 3 of them: sensorial, playful, and simple. And we'll take a look at a few examples of products that embody these qualities. So we'll start with sensorial. One of the biggest differences between the physical and digital worlds is the increased range of senses that physical products can engage with. Humans are more than just eyes and fingers, but you wouldn't know it by looking at many of the screen-based products that exist out in the world. In addition to our 5 core senses, we have a sense of balance and a sense of temperature, a kinesthetic sense that helps us determine the weight and positioning of objects. And industrial designers engage with this full range of senses through form giving, but also through what's called CMF, colors, materials, and finishes. So CMF choices define the experience of using a product. Often it's the CMF that can make a difference between a rich sensorial experience and a cheap knockoff where someone just copies the shape of something. Should an object feel hard or soft when you touch it? Should it be cool or warm against your skin? Should it be glossy or matte, light or heavy? All of these choices combine to create a holistic sensorial experience. At IDEO, we've long had this thing we call the tech box that we maintain as a collection of interesting materials. And it's used to inspire designers at the beginning of a project. You can play with it and pull out different materials. But recently, my colleague, Ross Lockwood, he started a new website to catalog truly unique materials that designers might not even know about. You can find it at materialshelf.com. One of the examples that he highlights is conductive Velcro. So this can be used as an on and off switch. So when the 2 pieces are joined together, it completes the circuit. And think about how different Velcro feels and sounds when you use it. It's a very different sensorial experience than if this was a button or a switch. Another interesting material is nanostone. This is a real stone veneer that is sliced to a thickness of only 50 micrometers, so it can be wrapped around a variety of different surfaces. So I think that along with keeping up with the latest CSS and JavaScript libraries, UX professionals should be learning about these new physical materials as well, since they can dramatically change the sensorial experience of using a product. I want to talk about Leica. Leica is a company that does sensorial extremely well, which tends to inspire really fanatic customers, including very famous photographers. So I love this quote: "Shooting with a Leica is like a long, tender kiss, like firing an automatic pistol, like an hour on the analyst's couch." Kind of extreme, but can you imagine that anyone would say something like this about a purely digital product? Invoking that kind of visceral reaction? Probably not. Many cameras have been completely dematerialized into an app, and Leica has sought to maintain a balance between physical controls and digital capabilities. Their cameras are renowned for their quality and quality engineering, but also for their form and finish. The sensorial qualities of the CMF really communicates the overall quality of their products. The weight and balance of the body, the smoothness of the metal, the sound of the dial as it clicks between settings. Leica has this video, these are a couple screenshots, on their website that shows the entire process of hand polishing a camera body on the Leica T. This is a 45-minute video of closely cropped hands that ends by saying, "It takes 4,700 strokes to finish each body." And they ask you if you can see the difference, and note, you can most certainly feel it. So it's a bit of a fetishizing of this quality, but it's for the obsessives. The very nature of physicality opens up the door for designers to create this kind of obsession or this kind of luxury product, really. So this concept of luxury, that products are tiered some way in sensorial experience, not just function, that can feel really different or foreign to a UX professional. But users intuitively accept that idea, that they'll pay more for a richer sensorial experience. Unlike digital products, which are often evaluated through a more egalitarian lens, because bits and bytes are seen as free. An extreme example of that is Leica's collaboration with the French fashion label Hermès. The Hermès edition has this camera body wrapped in a smooth ochre-colored calfskin leather, and it creates this new level of sensorial contrast as the user shifts their fingers from holding that warm, soft leather to adjusting the cold, precise aluminum controls. Intentionally or not, it also engages the user's sense of smell as they're holding it close to their face and the leather's there as they're framing a shot. The function of this camera is the same as the lower price model, but the sensorial experience commands a premium price because it's truly rare and special. And speaking of smell, this is often an overlooked sense, even by industrial designers, but it's one of the most powerful ways that we exist and experience the world. This is Martin Kastner. He's the founder of Crucial Detail, which is a design studio in Chicago. He specializes in custom products to support unique culinary experiences, designing to enhance both smell and taste. He's known for his work at the restaurant Alinea, but he also does work for the Aviary, which is a cocktail bar that elevates its drinks to a level of fine dining. For the Aviary, Kastner designed the porthole infuser. It's this round vessel that presents the ingredients of the patron's cocktail between these two flat panes of glass. It emphasizes this transformative action of the steeping process, and it builds anticipation for the cocktail's taste. The porthole infuser takes a part of the process that's normally hidden from people, and it brings it directly to a person's table, providing the time for the drinker to contemplate the ingredients on display and create a kind of mental checklist in their head that they can seek out with their tongue when they take the first sip. Enhancing smell and taste is really a new frontier for sensorial experience design. And if you find your work extending into the physical world with Internet of Things products, you need to remember you have access to this broad range of senses, and you can use them as a material for design. Don't overlook this richness. It's one of the primary benefits of physicality, and it should be utilized to its fullest to find this balance between digital and physical that really emphasizes the best qualities of both. Moving on to playful. We all know that children have this uncanny ability to see everything in a playful light. But as we get older, we tend to recognize the patterns of everyday life and start moving through the world more efficiently, but with less wonder and magic. Oftentimes, interaction designers are actually drawing upon these standard conventions that we're used to and the patterns of the world, familiar icons and structures and behaviors, to make products more immediately understood. But good design is about more than just removing pain points or utilizing standards. Usability matters, of course, but purposefully defying people's expectations in a playful way can actually lead to a better experience, sort of snapping people out of their daily life and surprising and delighting them in some way. And playfulness isn't at odds with usability, as long as it's deeply integrated with functionality and activity and not layered on top of a separate design. So this is where approaches like gamification sometimes get things wrong by not being intrinsically integrated with the core of a product. And as physical products gain new capabilities, designers are going to have an expanded set of opportunities and capabilities to playfully connect to the digital world. But I think it's a good place to start by looking at the many examples of purely physical products that can show us what it means to deeply integrate playfulness into functionality. Alessi is a company that many of you are probably familiar with that does playful extremely well. For them, its purpose is to really build this emotional connection with the user beyond simple functionality. And they've actually developed a very rigorous process in developing playful products, searching for that balance between fulfilling a function while delighting users and bringing personality and whimsy to a product. Take, for example, the Magic Bunny toothpick holder. It's a clever design that has this plastic bunny with long pointed ears sunk into an oversized hat. And when the bunny is lifted out, this metaphor of the magician's hat pays off because there's toothpicks hiding inside. And it's playful, it's fun, it sparks a conversation with your dinner guests. But the thing is, it serves its purpose really well, too. That heavy plastic head seals the toothpicks inside, keeping them free of dust. And then it splays them outward for easy reachability when it's lifted. Alessi also makes the Diabolix bottle opener. It's this happy little devil in colored plastic that appears to bite the cap off your bottle when you open it. And the amusement in this design comes from the playful way that the form is integrated into the activity of the bottle opener. That smooth curve and jagged top of the exposed steel are the perfect shape for both gripping the bottle cap and forming the devil's smile. And it's that recognition of that duality of form that makes the product so enjoyable. I think a lot of designers shy away from this kind of thing. They might be afraid that it's kitschy or childlike. But these examples can bring a smile to someone's face on a daily basis while also performing their function extremely well. Being human-centered means also considering people's emotional states. And playfulness is a particularly powerful way to elevate an everyday action, which can break people out of their routine and help them see the world in a new way. The Japanese designer Naoto Fukasawa, he regularly works at this intersection of everyday activity and playful design. His process is to look for actions that people do without thinking. So he wants to observe their subconscious behavior and then design for that. Because of this focus on behavior, he actually situates his work within the broader definition of interaction design, even though it's almost always physical in nature. A good example of this is the redesign he did of a tea bag, which turns the simple act of making tea into a playful performance. The concept came from watching people dip their tea bags in and out of a cup of tea, a cup of hot water, which reminded him of a dancing marionette. So this is Fukasawa's tea bag. When dipped in water, it swells to invoke the shape of a marionette. And instead of one string, there's two. So the user unexpectedly finds themselves controlling a puppet. This previously forgettable and unconscious action is suddenly brought to the forefront. This overlooked moment is transformed into a playful one. And the difference is noticeable to people around the tea drinker as well. It provides a little bit of surprise to people who would have simply ignored someone making tea in a traditional way. Another example is the Excalibur toilet brush by French designer Philippe Starck. In this case, it's an action that people rarely enjoy doing, but it's elevated through playful design. So Starck said that it took him about 2 years to come up with an idea that would justify putting yet another toilet brush on the market. And this is his answer. The handle of this brush invokes a fencing sword. It's got a protective end and a rounded brush. And this allusion to doing battle with a dirty toilet, it kind of ends up being more literal than metaphorical. You know, the sheathing on the handle protects your hand from the enemy's splashback. And both Starck's toilet brush and Fukasawa's tea bag, they're designed to elevate these everyday basic actions, but not change them. The physical motion that one goes through for both of them is the same. The activity remains the same. Fukasawa talks about this as design dissolving in behavior, where even a playful and performative product can blend into an everyday action. When designing products, consider what necessary physical actions you might be invoking. How can you look at those through a different lens? How might they invoke playfulness along with utility? Final principle to talk about is simple. And simplicity is a concept that many people champion as a goal, almost universally, but they have trouble describing what they really mean by it. Often it's conflated with the idea of minimalism. So designers just try to remove as much as possible. But as IDEO's CEO Tim Brown has described, minimalism is a reaction to complexity, whereas simplicity relies on an understanding of the complex. So it's specific to the nature and context of a particular problem. It's not something that can be copied or found through a universal set of rules. I've always appreciated Steve Jobs' explanation of how simplicity is achieved. He said, when you really start looking at a problem and it seems really simple, you don't really understand the complexity of the problem. Then you get into the problem and you see that it's really complicated. And you come up with all these convoluted solutions. That's sort of the middle, and that's where most people stop. He went on to say that simplicity is only really found when designers keep going and they find the key, the underlying principle of the problem. One good place to look for that key is in behavior, not form. So we can see that in an example of this novel bike light. This is the Relight Go. It's mounted to a bike frame similar to other lights. It has a bracket that affixes to the handlebars and another one to the seat post. But the key to this design is that the Relight Go is designed as two halves, joined through magnets, but separated so that the valuable and fragile half can be stowed while the bracket remains firmly in place. This structure enables not only the obvious security benefits of taking the light with you when you park your bike, but also simplicity. It allows the magnet to act as a switch to turn on and off the light automatically. The front and the back brackets use opposite polarity, which means these two lights can magnetically combine into a single compact unit for easy storage in a bag or a coat. And so really, when you think about it, the design tweak in the Relight Go is behavioral. They've reduced the hassle of attaching and removing the bike light. And they've dissolved the power switch into that action. But out of that behavior, the minimal formal aesthetics can emerge, removing the need for a button and allowing the bracket to attach in a cleaner, more permanent way. By first finding simplicity in the interaction, not the form, the designers were able to achieve both. Another great example of behavioral simplicity is the Philips Sonicare Diamond Clean electric toothbrush. So electric toothbrushes clean much better than their traditional counterparts if used properly, but they're also a pain. They need to be charged on a regular basis. This makes them more complex to manage, but the Diamond Clean brings simplicity and a little bit of magic to this charging process. So people commonly keep their manual toothbrushes in cups and glasses on their bathroom sinks. It's a familiar object that likely inspired the designers at Philips, because the charger for the Diamond Clean is actually just a regular rinsing glass. It sits neatly on top of a metal inductive charging base. So when you're done brushing your teeth, you simply place the toothbrush in the glass. It's the exact same action that you would have taken with a regular toothbrush, but it automatically begins charging. Sometimes the key to simplicity can be found in the very physicality of a product, leveraging its physical form to convey a mode or a setting with complete clarity. Consider this product, the Flip alarm clock. It's this colorful plastic rectangle with the words on and off emblazoned on the top and the bottom in a large font. So depending on what side faces upward, you probably guessed the alarm is turned on or off, and the LCD screen rotates so that it's always in a readable orientation. And when the alarm sounds, you just touch it anywhere on the top to trigger the snooze, and you simply turn it over to shut the alarm off. And people interact with their alarm clocks only exclusively at the sleepiest moments of their day. And this context really highlights the need for absolute clarity. With the Flip, these sleep-impaired users can make large, coarse movements in the dark instead of groping for a tiny switch to turn off their alarm. It also removes any ambiguity around whether or not the alarm has been set. When you're also sleepy at night. Physical mode switching like this provides this level of reassurance that will always be more intuitively trusted than a software setting. And the reason for that is that physical modes seem simpler because they mimic the way that the real world works. Even if they're not controlling something physical, even if they're controlling something much more complex behind the scenes, they intuitively are simpler to us. And Paul Dorish talks about this in his book, Where the Action Is, when he notes that tangible computing is of interest precisely because it's not purely physical. It's a physical realization of a symbolic reality. There's many reasons to bring physical and digital together, but perhaps the best is this possibility for simplicity. There's this commonly repeated minimalist mantra that less is more, but simplicity is never going to be found by just removing a few elements here and there. The graphic designer Milton Glaser critiqued this phrase by saying, no, actually just enough is more. And to uncover simplicity, designers have to dig deeper. You have to understand and grapple with the complexity of a situation before you can find a way forward through it. At the end of the journey, the result can seem obvious, like it shouldn't have required so much work. But truly elegant solutions are the result of fighting through that kind of complexity without leaving a visible scar from the struggle. Each situation is unique and may require many iterations to uncover, but designers basically just need to forge ahead, finding the spot to go past good enough until just enough reveals itself. As divisions between design disciplines begin to break down, designers can't afford to focus solely on digital or solely on physical. Great experiences require a blending of these two. The Internet of Things exposes many new possibilities, but the qualities that make a product smart should be built on top of a century's worth of experience in what makes a product good. We chose these principles for our book because we think that they're important attributes of good design and because they're relevant to a broad range of UX challenges. If interaction designers better understand industrial design, they'll be better equipped to not only collaborate with others, but to take a broader view of what user experience means as the lines between digital and physical continue to blur. Thank you.